Hello and welcome back to the channel with me, the Orienteering Kid, where today we're in Budapest for the first round of the TORUS trophy. Yes, we're here for what is going to be another exciting series on the Tempo Simulator, the TORUS Trophy. Now, what is the TORUS Trophy? It is going to be a year-long series with one event every month. So it's going to be 12 events across the year. I'm still not completely sure how many count across the whole series, so we're going to be making sure that we put in a good score today just in case all 12 count. And yeah, this series is being brought to us by Zoltan Mihaxi, so thanks for him for putting in the effort to do this series together. And his advisor for all the series, I'm guessing, is Libor Forst, who built the simulator. And of course, as always, you can find the link to this simulator to access all of the events, past and present, down in the description of this video. Now today, as we said, we're in Budapest. I'm expecting it to move around the whole of Hungary as we go, but it's Budapest today. And yeah, I'm excited to see what Zoltan's done for us today. That he's done a couple of courses during the TORUS events, and they've been mainly parkland, but there's also been quite a lot of vegetation reading to do. So I am really interested to see what type of course we have today. Now, I do firstly, before we get into this, have an apology to make. I promised at the end of my last video that I would bring you, during the weekend, a video of an interview with Ramo, and that interview did go ahead. It was a very good interview. I enjoyed talking to him. It was great, but 50 minutes into it, I looked up and discovered that none of Ramo's voice that I'd apparently recorded had actually been recorded, and it was just a video of me and Ramo talking, and all you could hear was me. Yeah, so that was unfortunate. I'm again really sorry to Ramo for taking up his time. So yeah, I am really sorry for that. I wish that could have gone better than it did, but that is how it is. And next time I promise you an interview, I'm now a bit more clued up in what to do, and I definitely won't make that mistake again. But yeah, that's the apology out the way. Again, I'm very sorry to Ramo for that to have happened. So yeah, we've got the Hungarian TORUS Tempo Trophy at the top of the series lists here, and we're going into event 1, which today is a 1 to 4,000 map with contours at 2.5 meters, and there's 7 stations, so it's looking like it's going to be a long one, and it's a 4 meter zero tolerance. So like the Tormus Cup that we've just finished, in order for an answer to be a 0, it must be at least 4 meters away from every other control. It looks like we're in Park and Ruins, and it's going to be real flags today. So the flags haven't been drawn on in Photoshop or GIMP or whatever else you use. Zoltan has actually gone out and put the flags in the positions, which I think is good. That also means there isn't any street views, so anyone who's done any map geeking beforehand, if was possible, you won't have been able to find any of the views very easily because none of the photos will have been street view. As always, all my answers will be going in the top right hand corner. There are 7 stations today, and there's likely that I will possibly make a mistake either actually during the course or in the editing with those letters, so we will see what happens. It's going to be another accuracy day, but with 7 stations, the 30-second penalty isn't as strong here, so 1 mistake within the whole set, or even 2 mistakes, will still potentially place very high, but obviously we're going for no mistakes and as quick as we can. And yeah, with that, let's have a go at the first round of the TORUS Trophy, and here is station 1. Okay, here we go. Trees. Oh, there is a kite at the background that's been enhanced. The ruins. Corner of that building. Well, it's there. End of the wall. It's northern end, so that's clear. Is it the right tree? I'm saying no. Is it the right thing over there? Seemingly so. That was quite a nice station to start off with. There was a bit of obscurity with all the tree branches, but I think it was clear where all the controls were, and actually quite a lot of the area was quite grey, so it made it a bit more interesting to try and spot the walls and the trees within it, but I think that was fine. It was a nice use of the ruins. If I've got it right, the final task being on the wrong wall was quite nice, and yeah, it was a good first station. And now let's move on to station 2. And we're here. Okay, we have trees, we've got the hills, we've got the path just there. Knolls, that looks like the wrong knoll, but I'm going to check that. Where's that knoll? Yeah, we've got to be in the wrong place, surely. We've got to be down the bottom. 0. Middle path. That's got to be Echo. I'm taking my time here, but I think that's fine. Null on the paved area. That's another 0. That side of the wall is Foxtrot, and on that path I'm going with Delta. So 49 seconds was quite a long time for that. I spent a lot of time on the first task trying to work out if we were in the right place, but I believe we were. I think that was fine. I think that was a good station. I think that was a very hard station. Because of the angle of the photo, the map didn't quite seem to match up as I wanted it to, but that's fine. I think that was good in its challenge, and now we will go on to station 3. Okay, so we have the ruin, there's all 6 controls, 2 buildings at the front, and trees at the back. We have this corner of the building, and I believe that's the wrong one. It looks like it was. End of that wall, are we looking at the right bit? It looks like we are. If it's not Alpha, it's miles away, that is a 0. On that bit there, I believe, must also be a 0, and on that corner is Foxtrot. Again, I think that was another interesting station, still using the ruin with the trees at the back. I think it was nice throwing us on the wrong corner to start with, but that was obviously the building that we looked at in station 1, and we knew we were looking at a different bit of building, so that was clearly a 0. I think the second task, not being able to see the wall behind the wall, or I may be proved wrong in a minute when we look at the final bits, was a bit interesting, but I think that was fine. And I think the 2 zeros after that were fairly clear, if I've got them right. And yeah, we will go on to station 4. And we have the ruins. We have a tree at the back there with Foxtrot, try not to miss. Are we in the right place? We must be. Corner of the stairs. Now there does seem to be stairs over there by Charlie. I'm believing that. Second wall. Alpha's on the tree. Side of the wall. There's also nothing there. Alpha is on the tree, and southern wall is Alpha. I do realise I was saying Alpha is on the tree. I was putting Foxtrot, I believe. I don't think I missed punch there, because I then realised that Alpha was the last one, and as much as I've been saying the wrong word, I believe I put the right answer, but we will see that in a minute, and you will have already seen in the top corner whether I've put the right thing or not. But anyway, I think that was another good station. I think that was quite a hard station though, to be fair. Trying to spot exactly where you were on the map the first time, and actually trying to spot whether Charlie was far enough back was quite hard to do, but I think that was fair and I think that was fine. Judging by where Delta was and you could see the path coming down, Charlie looked in about the right place, and with the 4 meter tolerance that looked fine. And knowing that Foxtrot, not Alpha, was on the tree meant that the second task being a 0 was quite clear, and then we went back to the tree for the 4th task. So yeah, that was a good station, and we will go on to station 5. And station 5 is here, and we have the bushes. We potentially have a rock by Foxtrot, the bush back corner, so that's obviously the wall there, although it's been mapped as that. It's the corner, so that's got to be Charlie. Second path, wall, Foxtrot, just on the path there, on the end of the wall and on the end of the bush. So that was, again, 27 seconds does seem to be the time to be getting on these stations. That's quite a common time I've been getting throughout that. It's quite funny. But I don't think there are any zeros in there. I thought it was quite a nice station. I possibly spent too long on task 1, trying to get a grasp of the map. Again, didn't seem to be quite fitting in my head. I don't know why. It was probably the angle of the photo or something, but I'm happy to believe that that map was accurate. I don't see any reason why it couldn't have been. And also the wall that Delta was on, to me, was looking a bit like a hedge, but I think that's just the ivy going across it. I think that was completely fine. And yeah, no zeros. It's quite a nice one to throw in about this time in the course. And yeah, with 2 stations to go, I am feeling pretty happy with this, but we will go on to station 6. And we have Delta Echo nicely marked there. The rocks, the corner of the tree there, on the hill at the back. Is it Delta? Top of the hill. I There aren't any other hills there. On the rock, yeah, you can see the rock by Charlie. On that tree, there are no side problems. On the hill out the back, it's too far back. And on this rock here is Echo. And that's possibly my quickest station so far, and I believe that I have got it all right. I think task 2 was potentially the hardest there, but I can also see task 4 having quite a lot of people getting it wrong. The only thing to give it away was the rock was actually poking up by Charlie, but when I first looked at the map I thought it would be behind the tree, and so I wasn't quite sure, but it is clear that it is actually where Charlie is, so that is the correct answer there, I believe. And also the Alpha or 0 out the back, it was clear that Alpha was at the bottom of the hill or the foot of the hill, and the centre of the circle I believe was at the top of the hill, and I don't believe there was a foot symbol in the control descriptions, so I believe that is fine, and I believe that one was a 0, but I may be eating my words in a minute. And we will move on to the final station of the course, station 7. And this is looking nicer with the top of the stairs, the posts, or it'll be marked as a fence. The second path, are we on the right path? Yes, we are, and it's that side of the hedge. Flower bed. That feels too close. Canopy. It's not on the canopy. And that bit of fence. So that is the final station. It looks like I'm pretty consistent with times apart from station 2, but you can see that with station 2 I was 20 seconds on one control and 14 seconds on the next one. Just wasn't quite fitting for me, but we'll get to that. And so station 1, we have obviously got the building in the centre. This is the biggest giveaway. We've got the zoom here, that's going to get annoying. I've got no way to turn it off at this moment in time. But we have the building, we have the ruins, we have this path coming down by where Delta is, and there does seem to be another path here where Alpha is, and the trees, so I believe Alpha's on this tree, on the furthest away tree from us, and then we've got Bravo on the building, Charlie on the first nook of wall, Delta on the second nook of wall, Echo in the corner at the back there, and I believe Foxtrot must be on the other side of the path on this monumenty thing here. So I believe we've got all the controls located, and we want the corner of the building, and so that must be Bravo there, as we've just said. And then we go to a nook of wall, and I'm learning my lesson with the arrows, but I still would have put a eastern arrow or a northeastern arrow in, because it's definitely the northeastern wall within the circle, and we want a northern end of wall on that bit. And I was debating for a bit whether it wanted where Delta is or on the bit of wall next to it, but the northern definitely distinguishes that we want the north end, not the western end, which the other bit of wall would be. So the answer to that one is Delta. And then we come over here, and we've said before that Alpha is on this tree, and the centre of circle is on the tree just below it. So clearly, as I've just said, Alpha's on the wrong tree, so it must be a 0. And we can also see this third tree by Bravo just here. We then go out to the path, or the two paths together, and we want the monument, and you can just about see it there where Foxtrot is, although that's not a real kite. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest, because the instructions specified there would be real kites, and if you're going to put a fake kite in there, I know it's not the most obvious thing and it's not the most defining thing in a course, but if you are going to put a fake kite in, maybe mention it in the instructions that station 1 will have a fake kite or a superimposed kite. But in terms of actually solving the task in the time, I think that's fine. It's definitely the northern side of this monument, so it must be Foxtrot there. And then this was possibly the hardest one in the station, and it did take me the longest time, although there was an average sort of time there, and it's corner of open land, and I possibly should have seen corner of open land sooner, because where is Echo? Well, we've said Echo is on this corner here, which is the corner of a paved area, and it's the wrong corner, and I actually want the control to be just back there, so that is clearly in the wrong place, and it must be a 0. So yeah, overall station 1 was good. Again, I think this bit of trees out the top might have been a bit distracting for some, but I don't think it was too bad. You can definitely see all the controls, and I think it hasn't really obscured many of the tasks much. It definitely reminds you that this tree is at the front, so when solving task 13, you know there is a tree in front of you, and so that should really indicate that Alpha is on the wrong tree even more. But yeah, that's that. And then station 2, I'm calling this my hardest station of the day, which you can see by my times, I took 20 seconds longer than any other station. So if you wipe out the first task and you just use the 4, it's still my longest station. But we are trying to identify a null, and are any of these, because Alpha, Bravo and Charlie all seem to be on nulls, but are any of them on the right null? I believe the answer is no, and this is why. We have this bit of paved area running along where the control circle is vertically, and as long as the photo's been orientated correctly, the path goes horizontally like this path down here. So I believe that immediately we are in the wrong place, but that doesn't mean we could be seeing a control far away on the right null. But if we are saying that these paths here, there does seem to be 3 paths here, and they seem to be these 3 paths here, which does seem to work. And then Bravo seems to be on a null. This was the hardest one for me to pinpoint exactly where Bravo was, but I believe it's on this null here. So we must be stood maybe on this open land area just back here. And so looking through, the only plausible answer, if Bravo's on this null, would be Alpha. But Alpha seems to be looking through on this flat section of land here, which must be this little hill that's been marked out there, or it's the null in front of it, and is still miles away from the location that we want, which should be on the edge of the photo. So I don't really know why that took me that long, other than trying to fit some of the things to the map, because originally I thought we were stood closer to the path junctions, and so why are we seeing another null that doesn't seem to be mapped? But that was clearly a 0, and I think that's fine. And I think that may have fooled a fair few of you, but I also think some people would have done that fairly quickly, judging by the directions of paths, etc. The next task then brings us here, and I guess I was trying to work out whether Delta or Echo was the correct path, because I think if the answer to this one is 0, is a cruel task, because I definitely think that Echo, which I'm saying the answer is within 4 meters of the centre of the circle. The centre of the circle seems to be on the boundary between runnable woodland and walking woodland, or slow run woodland, and the trees do seem to get thicker here, kind of on the edge of where Echo is. So I am confident to say that Echo is on the boundary, but is it on the right path? Well, it seems to be the most distinct path. It seems to be more distinct than a slightly more ruined path, which does seem to be what Delta is on, and it does seem to be running in about the right direction, so I'm willing to go with Echo for that. But again, it did take me 14 seconds to do. I think that was quite hard, still trying to get a grasp of the map here, but after that I think we were fine. We then come on to a null, and the null is in the middle of the paved area, and I think I have already answered this by saying that Bravo is on this null here. And so if we're stood here, this other null, like the first one that we had in task 1, must be out the photo, and so that must be another 0. So yeah, that was quite a nice quick one, although I was checking again. If I think I'm stood about here, I'm really confused about what Bravo could be on, but then I realised that Bravo must be that null, and so that must be a 0. And then I'm believing that Foxtrot is in about the right place here, because it's on the wall and it's in about the right position based on this hill, and we can actually see a bit of wall coming out there where Foxtrot is, so I'm actually really confident to say that that is in the right place on this wall junction here. So yeah, that one would be Foxtrot. And then this one is the final task, and I think we've basically covered this when we covered Echo. We want the next path round, and Delta is definitely on a more ruined path, and it does look like it's on the same sort of woodland boundary between the 2 different types of woodland, so that one must be Delta there. So overall, that was definitely, as I said, the hardest station of the course. In terms of the psychological method of this, throwing this in second definitely would have slowed you down a bit as you were trying to make sure you got everything right. But that was another good station. And now the third station, we have this bit of building at the front, we have another set of ruins around, and we have 2 kites out the back there, and we are asked to identify the building. And now, as I said previously, between the stations, station 1, we are obviously on this bit of building, and now the task for the 31st task is basically exactly the same task on that bit of building. Now if you look at this building, it's all pink and it's got the bit at the top, and then we go to 31 and this building is white with windows in the middle, so we're on completely the wrong building. We are actually over here with this tree as well, so we're miles away, it's miles behind us, so that one is a 0, but I think that's a good 0, and if you were paying attention in station 1 you could have definitely done that very quickly. But this was the one that I took the longest on, and I should have really believed this more, because again, a 4-meter zero tolerance definitely confirms that this one is alpha, because if we're looking from where we're saying the building and the tree is, there is a gap in the walls here, which is the one we're seeing alpha through, and then just through the wall and up a bit we hit a junction of 2 walls, which I think we can just about see there. So alpha, I'm going to say, isn't directly on the junction of the walls, but I believe it's within 4 meters of the correct location, so that one should be alpha there. I think that was definitely, again, 13 seconds to do that task. It was almost half the station time, but I think that one is clearly within the 4-meter tolerance, so I think that one is good as alpha. Now we come to 2 more zeros, and the first one is on a wall junction, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you went delta for this task here. But why is it not delta? If we are coming from here where the junction we're seeing alpha through is, and then we go along the wall, we hit another gap, and then we hit the delta kite there, which must be this sort of gap here in the left hand part of the circle, which you now will have realised that is miles away from the actual location. Well, it's definitely more than 4 meters away from the actual location we want, and it's probably behind this tree sort of area is the actual place we want in this bit of ruins. So I think that one is a 0. I did do that very quickly, but I was fairly confident that delta was far enough to the left for it to be a 0. And then we have the top of a hill, and this one may have taken longer for a few of you. I know 5.2 seconds doesn't seem like quite a long time in normal circumstances. However, we want the top of a hill, and if we're just basing this on angles, we can just base this on nothing else other than angles, because if we stood about here and we said that alpha is on this corner, we want the control location to be to the left hand side of alpha. And now, as I've said, left hand side of alpha is the leftmost kite in the photo, and so there must be no kites left of alpha, and so immediately that one is another 0. But I would like it on the top of this hill somewhere. But I can definitely see why some of you might have put Bravo or Charlie, because they are definitely there as distractors to try and make you get this task wrong. But yeah, that was another fair 0. And then finally we want the corner of a building, and we want the northwestern corner of the building, and I think with the slight centre of circle offset, that one must be Foxtrot down here nearer the tree than Echo round the corner. So yeah, that was a very good station. I think using the building that we'd used in station 1 was good, and I think within 4 meters that one is clearly alpha. But yeah, that was good. And now we move on to station 4, which was another interesting view, and some of these interesting views are quite hard to potentially spot some of the locations. And with Charlie now with the first task, again, if this isn't Charlie, I think this is possibly one of the cruelest tasks in the event. But if it is Charlie, I think it's fine. We can now see, or I've now seen, this staircase coming down, and Charlie is definitely at the foot of that staircase, and it definitely seems to be at the near side of the foot of that staircase, which is the northwest side. So that is exactly what the control description says, is exactly where the centre of the circle is, so that one must be Charlie. And then 42, we want the end of a wall, and now I had immediately clocked at the start that Foxtrot, although I kept saying alpha, but Foxtrot was on a tree, and if we are saying that Charlie is here, the Foxtrot tree must be this tree here, quite far back over there. Now with Foxtrot on a tree and the control description saying end of wall, instantly it's not going to be Foxtrot because it's on the tree, but just proving that here with Foxtrot on this tree, we want the second wall back because we want the southern wall in the circle, and we want this end of it, but it must be behind this wall through the gateway somewhere, so it's not near any of the controls, and it must be a 0. And then this was actually an even crueler task, to be honest. We want the eastern side of a wall, and Echo is on a wall. There is no debate that Echo is not on a wall, but is it on a correct wall? And I'm immediately saying no, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the centre of the circle I immediately saw was offset on the other side of the path, and so it's actually this wall we're going for, which is the wall behind Alpha just here. But I agree that some of you may think that this is a very cruel task because the wall that Echo is on is not mapped. But we have had this discussion about unmapped objects. I think the wall that Echo is on is obviously smaller than the Echo kite, and all the walls that are mapped seem to be taller. So I potentially would agree that that wall shouldn't be mapped due to its height, and so I think that one is just about fair. And the centre of circle being offset definitely shows shows that it's the other side of the path. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if many of you put echo for that, and I'll be interested to see the percentage of that task. And then we actually go back to the tree which we've noted before, and we've said Foxtrot is on this tree, and because there's no side problems it must be Foxtrot. And then we come back to the end of a wall. Again, it's the same control description as task 2. It's the eastern end of the southern wall, and as I'm guessing we're going with these two, we want the higher up in the photo, and so it must be Alpha rather than Bravo. So yeah, this was definitely a tough station. Again, trying to get a sense of depth and trying to spot maybe this staircase and the ends of the walls and stuff. It would have been a lot easier to do that in real life. Not that I necessarily know that because I've never done any in real life, but I believe this would definitely be a lot easier in real life, where you're able to move your head side to side, get a grasp of distance, and potentially see that staircase a lot clearer. But I don't think any of that really hindered the tasks. I think they were all solvable and fine there. And then this 5th station, I definitely could have done a lot quicker, but I thought I should take my time just in case. To start with, we want a corner of a thicket, and really, where are we stood to start with? If we are looking at where this building is, that must be this building here, really, if we're believing that we can see where we're stood on the map as well. And we can actually see this curve in the runnable woodland, must be this curve here. And then we see what delta is on, which to me looked like a hedge, but has been mapped as a wall, and I can believe it's a wall with moss on it. That's fine. And then we go across to where there is another bit of hedge here, where Bravo is, and then we cross the path, and we want the corner of a thicket. And so we land on Charlie, and so the answer to that one must be Charlie there, and I think that's a good task. And then we go across to the end of a wall, and we look to the right hand side, where we see that actually Foxtrot again is a virtual control. Again, I think if you're going to mention real kites in the instructions, try and make sure that you also specify if there are going to be any specific controls that aren't real, because that looks a lot different to some of these here. It's the most visible kite, and so it's clear that that is that, but I still think you need to specify that some of the controls will actually be drawn in. But that is the situation we're in, and again, I don't think it hindered solving very much. And here we want the second path along that leads to that section, and we obviously have one here, and then the second path must be here, where Foxtrot is on the end of a wall, and it is on the right end of the wall that we want. So that one must be Foxtrot there. We then go right to the other side of the photo, and we have on a path somewhere, and if we're following where this bit of paved area goes along, we then hit what seems like a path here, and Alpha is on that path, and within 4 meters it must clearly be in about the right place, so that one must be Alpha. And then we go to the wall that we talked about. Looks a bit like a hedge, but I think we've established now that must definitely be a wall, and we want the southwestern outside corner of it, and Delta is definitely there, so that one is Delta. And then we want the end of a bush, and we have again established on finding Charlie that Bravo is on the end of a bush, so that one again must be Bravo, and it must be a no zero station, which was good. And I think if I hadn't taken as long again identifying Charlie and trying to fit the map a bit better, that would have been a quicker station. But I do find it quite funny I did 27 seconds in a row, but that's fine, and that's me being consistent, which is always good. And then we come to the second to last station, and we get a bit more urban and a bit more green, which is quite nice, and a bit of rockery as well, works a bit. And we want the top of a hill. Now we obviously have in the background Delta on top of the hill, but is it the right hill? Now if we are believing we are stood here, this sort of paved area shape seems to fit quite well, and we have the bits of rock which seem to work, and the trees. So if we're stood by this rock down here and we look through, we hit a hill, and there only seems to be one hill in the area that isn't too far back, and Delta does seem to be at the top of it, so that one should really be Delta, I believe. This is possibly one of the tasks I'm least certain on, but judging by what I've just talked through there, I don't think that could really be anything else. I think if it's meant to be 4 meters this way, I think it's starting to go down the hill, and I think at speed it's very difficult to grasp that sort of idea that it should be there, but I think that's Delta. And then we come on to a boulder, and we want the northeastern side of it. Now with north going downwards and to the right a bit, the northeastern side will be directly downwards, and so are any of the controls on the rock that we want? Now firstly, when I looked at the map, I saw the tree and I saw the rock that we wanted, and went by the angle that we should be looking at it, we won't be able to see the rock because the tree will be in the way. But then I looked up at Charlie and saw there is a bit of rock just there that you can see poking out behind Charlie. Now that is very hard to see, and I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few of you missed it, but I think now looking at it, that is clearly Charlie Charlie there, so the answer must be Charlie. And then we go to the right of Charlie and we want a tree, and we want the northwestern side of that tree, and the tree is on the corner of a paved area junction, and as we follow this side round we do hit a tree on the paved area junction. Foxtrot is on the right side of it, so that one must be Foxtrot there. And then we go again for a part of a hill, and this is now what's making me think this one might be Alpha, but I'm going to stick with my guns for now. We want the part of a hill, and so the centre of the circle must be about there. I believe that Alpha is closer. You can actually see the bottom of the stake there now, so it's a bit clearer. I believe that Alpha is a lot closer to us than the top of the hill, and it should be about there. So I believe it's 4 meters away. I believe it's far enough away that that task must be a 0, but I also believe that quite a lot of you might have put Alpha for that, because again, I think these two tasks, we obviously had Delta before and we've now got Alpha with the hill, were definitely two very hard tasks, and I wouldn't be surprised if quite a lot of you put Alpha for that, and I wouldn't be surprised if Alpha was actually the right answer, but I believe that one is a 0. And then finally we have another rock, and we want another northeast side of rock, and it's right in front of us. We can't really miss the rock right in the front of the photo with Echo on it, and it fits in with the rock and the tree we've answered for Charlie and Foxtrot, so that one must be Echo. So yeah, actually, even though it's quite comforting to see a bit more paved area and a bit more urban environment, it was still a very hard station, and I did actually really like that. So again, that was another really good station, and actually it was my quickest station, which surprises me, especially with 2 of the tasks being quite hard there. And then finally we end up at this station, and we're given on the northern side of a thicket. Now the first thing to identify is which bit of paved area we are stood on, and I believe it's this left one here, because if we look from where the left one is and go upwards, we hit the corner of an out of bounds area, and then we hit the foot of a stairs just at the edge of the circle, which is the corner of this bit of out of bounds and the foot of the stairs. So we must be on the left hand side one, and we want the northern side of a bush just to the right of us, and Foxtrot just seems to be there, and it's definitely within 4 meters, so that one is definitely Foxtrot there. We then hit the corner of a flower bed, so the out of bounds section. We've identified this one being the one on the left, so we want the one on the right, and we want the back corner there. So that one is Echo. As you can see, the bottom of the kite just sticks out nicely from the back corner of that. And then we have another corner of bush, and it's establishing whether we believe that Alpha is far enough that way to be that. But personally, I don't believe it is. If we look at where this bit of out of bounds or the flower bed ends and follow it down this way, I believe we hit about that bush there, or the other side of that bush there, which you can see is far away from Alpha as it is, but I believe this bush is the corner of bush that it's going for, and we want the further away corner, so I believe it should be even further round, and that one is a 0. But I may be proved wrong again afterwards, we will see that. And then we want the edge of a canopy, and it is clear that this canopy is up here. It's this little bit of circle. It's quite hard to see the little bit of grey circle, to be fair, but it is this bit of canopy up there, and so the edge, or at least the southern edge, would be about where this pillar is, which again you can see clearly there is nothing on that. And I believe that Echo, even though it's another drawn in kite, and actually I've just spotted Bravo is drawn in as well, so even though those are 2 drawn in kites there, Delta is miles away from the edge of the canopy. Well, it's definitely more than 4 meters away than the edge of the canopy, so that one can't be Delta, that must be another 0. And then finally, it's quite a nice task to finish off, we have the end of a fence, and Charlie is definitely on the end of a fence there. It's definitely on the southwestern end of that fence, and so that one must be Charlie there. So yeah, overall that was a very good station. It was a nice station to end on. I think when people saw the photo they potentially thought they could go a bit quicker, but then there were some couple of interesting tasks which might have thrown people. And then yeah, overall it was definitely a very interesting day. It was definitely a very tough day. It contrasted a lot with the TORUS Cup that we'd just been doing over the past week or so, so I think that was quite nice to have a bit of change of pace. But I don't believe I've got anything wrong there. I may be greatly proven wrong later, but I think that was quite nice, and there was a nice number of 0s in there as well. I don't think there were too many, maybe averaging about 2 a station, which I think is a good number. But yeah, that is all the analysis for now. We will now go and have a look at the overall results. And as I said before, just having 1 or 2 mistakes on some of these longer ones can still place you very high, and I'm fairly confident that I haven't got any wrong. So 203 seconds for 7 stations will probably place me quite high there, because for some of them, being in the 20 odds per station is actually quite quick, even with some of these like 13 seconds on a task, 11, 12. It does seem to be the first task on each station, which is expected as you're trying to get used to the map and the photo. But yeah, let's have a look at the results, and I am in first again. Wow, that's very comforting to know, as that probably means that I haven't got any wrong. So everything that I've said there is probably right. But yeah, that is all for now. We will see whether I can hold on to this first place, and I will see you later for the overall results. And yes, we are back, and as you can see, the first place has been held. There were a couple of scary moments within this, I will say, with Alessio and Eric both coming in just behind me in second for Alessio, and then Eric in second again. But yeah, it's the first time on camera I've managed to hold the first place, so I am very happy with that. Well done to Eric and Alessio again for the second and the third places though. It's very good. And actually, there weren't many people that made no mistakes. It looks like there was maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 people at least that had no mistakes. So I think if you did that, you did very well. And even if you only made a few mistakes, or maybe even one per station, I think today's event was very hard. So very well done to you. I would also like to point out that it is one of the biggest events we've ever had on the simulator, with 833 people giving this event a go. So very well done to all of you that have done it today. We'll go through the station percentages. The first station, there seems to be a fair bit of red in the first and third columns. Sorry, not first and third, first and fifth columns, with actually 66% for the final task, which doesn't feel too low, but I think that's still a fair number of you. Actually, 246 people went for Echo rather than 0, which 557 people went for, but I think we've clearly pointed that out during the first station. And then station 2, when it loads, there we go, we're scrolling through, and it's a complete mess of red here. This was a much poorer answered station, although the third task was fairly well answered, but it does actually look like there was a spread of wrong answers really here for the whole station. So maybe this is one to go have another look at, because many of you, seemingly for the first task especially, 100 for Alpha, 98 for Bravo, and a fair scattering for the others as well, I think obviously shows that this station was potentially the hardest, and I definitely called it the hardest when we did it, so we will go have a look at that station again. Third station, and oh, it's looking like the second and third task potentially caught the most people out, and again the percentages don't go over 63%, and there is a fair scattering of wrong answers again. For example, 247 of you went for Echo for the first task, and 278 went for Delta, and 114 went for Charlie for the third task. I don't know whether there was potentially some mispunching there with putting Charlie instead of Delta, but we will go and have a look at those. But well done to really any of you that got any right there, because that was 40% is the lowest percentage so far, so maybe this was an even harder station than station 2. And then station 4, again there's a lot of red, there's potentially even more red here, and again we've got our lowest percentage of station at 30% for task 4, with 226 of you going with Delta and 308 of you going with 0, and only 257 of you actually went with the right answer of Foxtrot. But I think this is also potentially because quite a number of you went with Foxtrot for task 2, and a fair few went for Delta as well with task 2, and potentially thought you were wrong there, so went with Delta again. I don't know, but 30% and 40%, those were the worst two tasks on station 4, so we will have another look at that. And then station 5, it's looking a lot greener at the top here, but potentially there's a bit of a more scattering again, but the first and the last tasks were the worst two again. There seems to be a common theme coming here with that, and again just a fair scattering of wrong answers. There does seem to be a bit more certainty on the right wrong answer, if that makes sense, but with no zeros in this station I don't think the tasks potentially would have caught as many of you out, but there's still 151 thought the last task was a 0, which definitely shows that even in a no zero station there are some very difficult tasks in there that it's not always easy to pinpoint exactly any of the controls being the right answer. But it looks like the first and the last tasks will be the ones to have a look at there in station 5. Then station 6 is looking like the second and the fourth tasks here with the two columns, and Yeah, definitely, with 59% getting the second task in this station right, and 49% getting the fourth task in this station right. Now, I definitely said in the previous bit that this fourth task was potentially the hardest task in the whole thing, to be honest, and that's potentially shown with the statistic, although we did have the 30% earlier. Again, a scattering between alpha and delta as the wrong answers, but the correct answer being 0. We will have a look at that one, and we'll have a brief glance over at the second task as well, with a few of you going Bravo as the wrong answer, and a fair few going Echo and 0 as well, but just under 500 of you getting that right, so well done to all of you. And then finally, it's the station 7, and there's still a fair bit of red here, with quite a lot of you getting some of these wrong near the end as well, and a 56 and a 49% in here. The other 3 tasks didn't seem too bad, but starting out 56% of you getting the first task right, and there's a couple of different answers here of Alpha, Bravo and 0. So I think that was definitely a tough task to start that station, trying to identify which end of the path we actually wanted. And also the third task here, quite a number of you went Alpha for this, and I believe that Alpha was definitely the most obvious wrong answer that you would potentially go for. I think I said before it definitely seemed quite close, but we will have a look at those 2 tasks as well. So yeah, let's go through those slightly harder tasks. Now, in the first station, it was really the last task that was the worst answered, I believe. I've still got this soon, but we'll work with it. It's definitely the hardest task in this station, in my opinion. We have the control description of open land corner, and that's really the giveaway here. If you're just looking at the map, you will see it's a wall corner, and you'll see Echo's in a wall corner, and so you will go for Echo. But with it being open land inside corner, Echo is on some paved area, and so this corner of the wall is the wrong corner of the wall, and we want the corner back there. But other than that, I don't think there was really much wrong with this station. I think a lot of you did actually do very well for the first station, and I think this was a good first station to potentially start on. But it did get a lot harder as we went through here, and I think this was a fairly poorly answered station, but I also don't think it was too bad. I think we averaged about 60% here per task, which was good. A lot of you potentially zeroed this one because you had no idea what you were doing, and that is a tactic some of you may employ, but I think it is definitely solvable as well. We are clearly on a wrong end of paved area, and we want a null, and is Alpha the right null? Because we must be on this bit here looking out there, but there isn't any paved area to the left side of Alpha, so if Alpha is the right null, there would be a path running about here. So that one is clearly a 0, as we said before, and I still think it was potentially hard to see which one of these paths Echo and Delta are on, and you may have easily thought that the path Echo is on is actually this slightly ruined path below it. So I'm not really surprised a fair few of you would have zeroed that one. This 0 was very well answered though, which is good, and then quite a few of you zeroed the fourth task, which I agree it's potentially hard to see exactly where Foxtrot is. Trying to spot this wall junction where the centre of circle is quite tough, but this is why the 4 metre tolerance is there. It's definitely in the right position for the hill, and it's on the wall, so within 4 metres that is clearly going to be Foxtrot. I don't believe it could be anything else, but again I can see why that was a hard task and quite a few of you potentially would have slipped up on that one. And finally, this task was either potentially a lot of you realising that you've missed the path that Delta was on and so got 23 wrong and then got Delta right, or you were sticking to what you'd said before and said that Echo is on the first path and so you've put Echo for this task instead of Delta. So again, I think quite a few of you potentially would have made that mistake again, and I think overall it was a fairly hard station, but averaging 60% across all the tasks was very good, so well done to all of you that did well in this station. And then the third station, it was the third and fourth tasks that were potentially the worst answered. Now the only reason I can see that people might have put Charlie for this is mispunching, because we've had Alpha before, and just glancing up you might only see one of those 2 kites there, because Charlie is quite tucked away behind that wall, and I potentially may have put some red or white lines at the top to point that out, although I don't think it's too obscured. I think it is spottable. So yeah, you would have not seen that it's a 0 and you would have counted Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or you've counted correctly and gone Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, but you would have still got it wrong because it is on the wrong junction of the wall. So even if you've miscounted there, it didn't really matter because it was still a 0. 0. But I think that is potentially hard to spot that it is a 0. We've just got to remember what tasks we've done previously, believe our previous answers, and then go from there, from what you know, and realise that it's on a different junction. But at speed, that is potentially hard to spot. And then this one is possibly one of the hardest zeros here. It's definitely the hardest task in this station, because you are sent out away from the ruins and led to believe that Bravo or Charlie is the right answer to this. But we have already established that Alpha is on this bit here, and we want a control to the left of Alpha. And we can see here that it must be just about here in the photo, where Bravo and Charlie are actually miles away from that location, and actually Alpha is probably closer. But that is a 0. I think that is a very clear 0. But again, in the speed of the competition, you may have completely missed that. And it's all about learning, isn't it? Learning about trying to use previous tasks in the station to help you solve these tasks further down the line. And then station 4, I think it was these 2 tasks. People actually answered 43 very well, which I think is very good. We're learning about unmapped features, and I think it is clear that this wall is smaller than the kites, so it will be unmapped. But potentially a note in the instructions, because the only instructions we got today were real flags, and I have actually pointed out in a couple of stations that real flags wasn't true in all cases. But I think just having those little extra bits in the instructions for the days, for example saying that all walls smaller than the kites or lower than the kite height aren't mapped and things like that, just help the competitor a bit. But it is part of the challenge as well, trying to spot things, reasons why things aren't mapped, etc. But yeah, that was a very well answered task. It was the 2 right at the back which were the hardest ones, and I think if you didn't spot that Foxtrot was on a tree, then you could have easily thought this was Delta, and quite a few of you put Delta for this, because really this bit of ruined wall here is just mapped as a wall. And I can believe that the wall continues round, but really in my mind I would have wanted a break in the wall in the map here just to make it a bit clearer. That is really where it is, and we can see here it is on a bit that pokes out. Although actually looking at it, I have been looking at it wrong, and the wall is continuous and it's just in that little corner there. So that is mapped completely correctly, and so really that is quite hard to see straight away. There is a bit of a depth problem here, but that's clearly on this side of the wall. So actually you had to spot Foxtrot on the tree really to solve this task, and then realise that we want an end of the wall further back from the tree. So it's obscured by this wall, it's through that archway we can just see there, so it must be a 0. And then we come back to the tree, and you again might have put Delta if you're not looking at it properly, thinking that it is in the ground by this tree here. It could be a very easy mistake to make, but in which case the control description would be wrong, and it would be the wrong side because north is going downwards. And I appreciate that in the zero tolerance that was mentioned that there are no side problems, but that should have potentially made you think a bit more about whether Delta is actually on the right tree or not. But yeah, I can see why Delta would be a plausible wrong answer for those 2 tasks. And then station 5, it was the first and the last tasks which were the worst answered here, and I think they were potentially the hard to grasp, really, the sense of depth and where they were. But the building is clearly here, and if we follow down like we did before, we have the curved bit of paved area, we then hit the slightly open bit of paved area where you can see the corner there, and then there's a path coming through behind this tree, and Charlie is on the corner of the bush just by this path here. So I just think following the clues definitely leads you directly to Charlie, but again it did take me 12 seconds, so it did take a small bit of thinking time to solve that. And then the last task, it's trying to spot whether Bravo is actually on the end of that hedge or whether it's just randomly in the thicket somewhere. But if we follow this path down, it obviously widens about there, and then if we follow that sort of widening along, we come to about where the Bravo kite is, and that is about where the end of the bush should be. So that is very clearly Bravo in my opinion. But really, if you don't spot this end of path bit, you may not believe that Bravo is in the right place, and actually maybe you want it further in front of the bush here. But those 2 tasks, being tough in themselves, made this station harder, and it definitely felt a bit weirder maybe coming up to the final task to have a no zero station here. And I can see why some of you were potentially putting 0 because you hadn't put 0 for any of the other tasks in this station. But that's maybe a point to work on, of believe that you have actually got it right, even if you haven't put any zeros yet. You just take each task independently and you just see what it brings brings you. Just because one task or the whole set of tasks before wasn't zeros doesn't mean that the last task will be, and it is a good variation here to keep you on your toes between having stations with no zeros, 1 0, 2 zeros and even 3 zeros at points with station 3. So it is a good balance, and having this station here to try and slow you down a bit or speed you up, as I presume it would have sped some people up. And then it was really the second and fourth tasks here which were the worst answered. Quite a few of you put bravo for this one, and I can potentially see why. When I first looked at it, I thought that the boulder would be to the left hand side of this tree, because that's what it kind of looks like in the map. Because of the orientation of the map compared to the photo, it definitely looks like that we shouldn't really be able to see this boulder, but that is potentially just a bit of photo distortion bringing the boulder off to the right hand side of the tree instead of the left, and it is clear that there is a boulder behind there where Charlie is. So I believe that that one is a fair task of Charlie, and this was the worst answered in this station, and it was definitely the hardest task in this station. And to me the simple answer is that Alpha is just too close to the path and too far down the hill. As we can see here, Alpha is right on the edge of the path, and we want the part of a hill, or we want the northeastern part of a hill. We don't want the northeastern foot of a hill. If it was the northeastern foot of a hill, then yes, I would be straight on Alpha, but because it's part, we want it still to be on the top sort of section of the hill, not directly on the top like Delta is in this task here, but within that first ring, or within the form line on the top of the hill, which is clearly too far away from Alpha, so that one must be a 0 there. But yeah, that was definitely a very hard task. And then finally, the hardest two, or the worst answered tasks here, were 71 and 73, and this is a very cool task to bring you in on straight away, because which path are you stood on is the immediate question that a lot of you will be asking straight away. And really the only way to tell is by looking up and seeing that you have the flower bed with the second flower bed to the right and the foot of the left hand set of stairs as well in front of you, which must bring you onto the left hand path here, and we want the right hand side. But I can also agree that many of you would have potentially seen yourself stood on the path to the right, and so we're looking for control on the left and put Alpha or Bravo, and I think most of you actually put Alpha. But yeah, that was definitely a hard one to potentially get a grasp, and I think if you did that and you thought you were on the wrong path and you kept thinking you were on a different path to where we were stood, you would have zeroed this task straight away because you wanted it to be right round over here somewhere. So I think some of you potentially might have got lucky with that, but for those of you that knew where we were straight away, why is Alpha and Bravo wrong for this? Well, as I said before, I think Bravo is on the boundary, as we can see here, of the green and the white, and then Alpha is only just a small further bit along, and we actually want the corner of a thicket, which is where this X is, and I believe I can see the thicket there, as you can see in the zoom. So it should really be the other side of that bush that we can kind of see in the left hand side of the photo, so that one must be a 0. But it's nice to see a canopy problem here, and it's nice to see me getting a canopy problem right. As we discovered in the TORUS, these aren't my specialty, but I think I'm definitely learning with that, and yeah, it was a nice task to end on the end of a fence. So yeah, overall it was a really good day. It was a fairly tough day, but over 35 tasks you're expected to make 1 or 2 mistakes, because not many people can be consistent across a whole 7 stations. So yeah, I think very well done to all of you. You've all done really well today, and we will see what happens next month for the second event in this series. We will go and have a quick look at the overall results. We won't look at the competitors because we already know that from only having one day, but you will see that Massey haven't quite got the lead today, as MDoc have managed to just pip them. The first, second and third of MDoc managed to beat the first, second and third of Massey respectively. So it was a very clear win there, but I think it's definitely going to be a closely fought competition as we go through. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And actually the countries as well, the Brits have managed to win today again by just over 2 points. So it's again going to be a very interesting year. I think the next 11 events, oh, we can actually see here, it will, for the final result, a sum of the 9 best from 12 results is counted. So you can have 3 bad results as we go, but we will see how that affects it, and we will see whether Britain and MDoc can hold on to the first places in the clubs and countries, or will Massi and the Italians manage to take it back? You will find that out next month when we have round 2 of the TORUS trophy. But for now, that is the end of today's video. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're on over 100 subscribers now, which is amazing, but there's still about 60 to 70% of you that are watching these videos and aren't subscribed. Subscribing really helps me out a lot. You get notifications for every video that I put out, and really it helps the YouTube algorithm make these videos reach so many more people, and we get to show the whole world exactly what Trailer is and what we get to do and how much fun we have in doing so. So if you would like to subscribe and like the video, that would be amazing. And as always, make sure you're commenting below any extra analysis that you think I missed and any additions to the videos that you want. I appreciate today's video will be really long because it's twice as long as any of the TORUS events that we did. But thank you all for watching, if indeed you still are, and I will see you next week for the start of the TORUS training week.